Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Cool Sports Network. I am your host, Chase Coburn, and today we are joined by a very special guest, the head coach of the Manhattan Jaspers men's basketball team as they prepare for their first round meeting in the MAAC tournament against the Iona Gaels. Head coach John Gallagher. Coach, thanks for joining me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you are able to take the time. Again, we really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we're less than or about 48 hours away from your game against Iona, so we really appreciate you taking the time on such short notice. Just talk to me here. I mean, about how the emotions are. Obviously, it's going to be you're looking for your first MAAC tournament win. Team has won 4 games in a row. How are you feeling at this time ahead of the MAAC tournament in Atlantic City?
So I think the first thing is we're playing well, but it's a new season. So for everybody, everybody's 0-0. It doesn't matter what your record is. March is a different time. You just look at Delaware; they lost 11-12. Now they won 3 or 4 in a row. They're playing for the title tonight. You got to get hot in March, and you got to be ready to play. So, I think we're playing well, and we just have to find a way to play our best basketball right now.
I mean, that's everything. You hear stories all the time about teams who were a lower seed in a conference going on to make a championship game. You guys fortunate enough to get that by getting the fifth seed, setting up that first round matchup with Iona, which again we are going to break down throughout this entire episode. Just talk to me though. You mentioned how it's a brand new game when you enter the conference tournament and you enter kind of this playoff time of basketball before you can even think about the NCAA tournament. You have previously coached though at the University of Hartford. You know what it takes to win conference tournament games and solidify a berth to that NCAA tournament and punch your ticket to March Madness. Explain what it takes and what it will take to do it again in this illustrious month of March.
You know, we try to break it down to first is your emotions. You know, that first 4 or 5 minutes, making sure that your emotions are contained. And then after the first 2-3 minutes, it's just another basketball game. So you can't be, I always say less is more this time of year. If we're adding different things to the playbook right now, it shows panic. We are doing less with our offense and defense and more with our execution of what we're doing.
Last year, it was your first season as the head coach of Manhattan, and your team didn't have the success I'm sure that you had hoped. Finished with one of the worst records in the conference. Now you're looking a year later, though, and we're talking about getting the fifth seed, getting that first round bye. How have you been able to make this turnaround from one year to another? Obviously, in the new landscape of college basketball, the transfer portal, and being able to recruit new players in such a prolific way for coaches obviously has helped. But that's a big turnaround. How have you been able to make that leap in year two as a head coach? And we kind of spoke about this when we first met, but it's like kind of that accelerated growth for you and your coaching staff here at Manhattan.
Well, I think the biggest thing in the jump is the players we recruited. We did, my assistant coaches deserve a lot of credit. They did an excellent job of finding the talent that can win in this league. I think we've had injuries, but we've overcame them because of our depth. And then the next thing is, look, we retained our key guys from last year. Retaining guys that have high character, that fit the culture. Jaden Winston, Wes Robinson, Shaq Bender, were all key retained guys because they understand the structure of the program. So, I am excited that we got 17 wins, but now let's see how many more we can get.
That's obviously going to be the key. I do want to talk about the all MAAC teams were just released, and I want to touch on that. I find it unbelievable that Will Sidner is able to make it on the all MAAC second team when he's a freshman this year. Talk to me about what he's done and a few others as well. Obviously, Devin doing some great things on the all MAAC third team, Devin Dinkins. So talk to me about them and a few others who have just been so prolific in their roles here at Manhattan.
Well, first off, you got to look at just how Will's ability to score on all three levels. He can score from three, he can score on a pull-up game, and he can score at the rim. And obviously, is the way he's been able to have big breakout games in some big spots. Fordham at home, Iona, to name a few. But his consistency is what I like. So we're going to need that against Iona because I thought his last time out he wasn't up to his level. But for us to be able to win this game, we need Will at its best.
Let's kind of speak about the schedule, right? Because obviously it's a newly formatted MAAC tournament. You guys qualify for it. You're going to Atlantic City, but you're not there yet as of the time we're recording this at about 7:00 on Tuesday night. Talk to me a little bit about the schedule, how your team is preparing. Now, you guys are fortunate. There are a few teams that don't even know who they're going to be playing in the next round. You guys do have that advantage. We'll break that down in just a minute. But talk to me kind of about how your team is prepared this quick turnaround from one game to another and kind of what the next 48 hours look like up to tip-off for you until you face Iona.
Yeah, I think you bring up something very interesting that nobody talks about is the preparation. When you have 4 or 5 days to prepare and you get to chew on it, as I say, and digest how you want to play certain things against any opponent. It gives you an advantage, and it gives the opponent an advantage. So they know what we're going to do. They know what, there's no secrets here in March. And I think I'm way more comfortable in knowing who I'm playing, in a 96-hour period than a 24-hour flip. Now, after you win, or, if you had the chance to win, anybody has a quick turn. So at a certain point, you're going to have a quick turn. But Iona presents a boatload of problems for us. But our preparation, off on Sunday, practice Monday, practice Tuesday, leave, practice Wednesday, leave, head down to AC, do, 3 or 4 film sessions between Monday and Thursday, and then have a shoot around on Thursday morning, and then the ball tips.
Obviously, it's such a tight schedule, and while obviously it's better than having to turn it around kind of from day to day, as you mentioned, it is still tough to kind of prepare both physically and mentally. I was speaking with Sacred Heart head coach Anthony Latina about this, just preparing both physically and mentally for a tournament like this and the physicality of what it takes to win March games in the MAAC tournament and win it in Atlantic City. I got asked, when I spoke to Coach, he was very upset about the fact that they couldn't have any nice cuisine. They get there, they're going to the Hard Rock Cafe. Where's your team going for some of your meals? How are you going to appreciate the touristy part of this Atlantic City trip? Make sure you're in the right space mentally before you head into Thursday's game.
Yeah, there's no touristy trip here. This is a business trip, Chase, and Atlantic City in March wouldn't be a spot to take a tourist trip. In May, and June, and July, of course, great spot, but not in the middle of March.
Hey, you never know when you could go back on vacation. When you're driving by, it's a nice place to go across the summer. Let's talk about that matchup with Iona, because you said in a post-game press conference back in February after you guys beat Fairfield that your team is big on winning and outplaying your opponent the second time you see them. It was kind of flipped when you played Iona. You really had their number the first time around. The second time around, they were able to pull away with a slight victory. What is going to be the key for your team for getting that win this third time around? And we talked about with you how you have experience in March. So does the other coach on Iona, Tobin Anderson, who has his previous experience with FDU. So just talk to me about what your team's going to have to do to get the win the third time around, though you weren't able to get it the second.
I think the biggest thing for us is playing to our strengths and staying away from our weaknesses. And I think Iona does a great job of putting you in a lot of spots that are really challenging. So we have to stay out of those spots, and we have to execute to the highest level.
Your offense is among the most dangerous to play against in the MAAC. It was just shy of Sacred Heart's points per game in terms of that category for the best offense in the conference. How do you plan to exploit a great defensive scheme, though, that Iona presents for you guys?
They're a pressing group, play fast, defend, deny passing lanes, trap ball screens, and we're expecting all of that. So that's what we got to really, we're going to have our hands full. We got to make great decisions out of those things.
Real quick before we wrap up, in that press
Yep.
conference against Fairfield, you said, why not us and why not now? Kind of referring to the fact that your team, we're talking about that leap from year 1 to year 2 for you as a head coach. And you always say that year 3 is the year where you're supposed to take that leap, and how you want to make it in year 2 as a coach at Manhattan for you in this program. Is that still your team's motto heading into the tournament?
Why not us? We talk about it every day. So, you know, it's an energetic. It's sort of caught fire on its own, and we're a group. Obviously, we won 7 of 9, and for it to be why not us, we have to execute. As we talk about, smaller the detail, greater the value.
And I got to say real quick before we wrap up, something that you guys have done so well, you just keep yourselves in tight games, right? Like a lot of the games where you guys do win, you're able to slightly pull away, but at the same time, it feels like your guys are never out of the game. How is that going to play to your advantage? What other strengths are going to play to your advantage here in Atlantic City?
Well, we hope they play to our advantage. So I think the
Right.
biggest thing for us is we played in we've had one blowout all year. We've been blown out one time. It was the first game of the year versus Maryland. And it was, I think we were down 1 at half or down 3 at half. And then we took 4 consecutive bad shots in that game, and then the game got away from us. But that was the only time that the scoreboard presented in a blowout, which is impressive over 29 games. I think we have to just stick to our strengths, stay away from the weaknesses, and be really, really excited about playing.
Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time. Again, you're less than 48 hours away from your tip-off against Iona. We really appreciate you taking the time at this time, and we wish your group with the Jaspers the best of luck, because we know you guys are one of the most talented teams, especially offensively in this conference. You're going to present many challenges for Iona and maybe if you play future opponents. Coach, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you for taking the time.
Chase, from your lips to God's ears, thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach. Really do appreciate it. Have a great trip to Atlantic City. Have as much fun as you can and enjoy the wonderful time of March here in the MAAC tournament. We're going to wrap up here alongside the head coach of the Manhattan Jaspers men's basketball team, John Gallagher. I'm your host, Chase Coburn, signing off as we preview the MAAC tournament here on Chase's Sports News.